those are a couple of the tarot cards. This one, I think I have to write 154 sonnets to finish, so it'll be a few years. And before I get to the recent work, I thought I might just read one poem from a manuscript that I've been working on for a few years. For about 2 years, I've been researching classic American pulp fiction, comic books, and B-movies, which has been a lot of fun, although I will tell you that I never had zombie nightmares until I had to watch all the darn zombie movies in order to write the poems. And nothing worse than zombie nightmares. There's no hope in a zombie nightmare. It's apocalypse. The dead are going to rise up and eat everything. And there's no way out. Okay. It's a kind of disease thing, of course, but it's also, well, anyways. So this is called The Cat Lady. The manuscript is called Pulp Sonnets, and it has a lot of linked sonnets in short story form. So the longest one is 28 sonnets in, it's a little short story in sonnets, and the shortest ones are like this single standalone stories. And so I'll just read this one. It's called The Cat Lady. It's in the horror genre. Feel free to laugh. They are often quite humorous. The Cat Lady. The thing that tipped me off was all the cats. There always was a snarl of cats about the Snyder house. I knew that she was nuts from how she let the plants and grass grow out until the place was Africa, with ways worn through savanna grass. I doubt that anyone went up through that tangled maze to the house for months until the rude caterwauling began. After 5 days, I knocked. The door swung open. The cats had chewed and clawed the cupboards, but they were shut fast, had picked squirrel bones among the sealed canned food, and other bones. One thing I'll say for cats, they love you so much, they'll eat you last. So, okay, that's Pulp Fiction stuff. And then I thought what I might do is just read a little bit from The Golem of Los Angeles and from Tongue of War, and take any Q&A there might happen to be. I'll just read a few poems from The Golem of Los Angeles. I think I'm going to read poems I don't often read. This is called Parable of the Birds, and it was written basically about the way in which the male gaze can be a kind of a torture to attractive women, and you'll probably get the Hitchcock reference. The Parable of the Birds. As in a horror movie, their glances fly at her, and though she's covered up in cloth, they pluck her hems and stockings, prick her arms and calves, and beat against her crotch and on her thighs like black wings against glass, swooping up skirt and down her blouse. They snatch her hair to wrap the thoughts of breasts and ass that nest inside their brains. And say she catches, gazes on her nipples, and she frowns. They'll snap her lips up in their beaks. And say she steels herself and tries to stare them down. They'll steal her eyes like rings and fly away. Sorry I messed that up in the middle of the reading. But anyways, there it is, Parable of the Birds. And then I thought I might just read two more poems. This is called Azusa Boulevard. When I first moved to Los Angeles, it was smoggy, and I didn't know there were mountains for months, actually. It was a smoggy summer, and one day I looked up and I saw mountains. I was very surprised. And so I decided to drive to the mountains. The day I drove was actually a smoggy day, so I knew that if I drove up Azusa Boulevard, eventually I would hit the mountains. But it wasn't until I actually hit the foothills that the mountains were actually revealed themselves, and along the way, gangbangers, and, with their shirts off and tattoos, and anyways, welcome to Los Angeles. This is called Azusa Boulevard. I'm driving out the boulevard, past icons, orange planets floating over the gas stations, the Tiki Tiki Lounge, the Iron Sky, the convenience store where, for a pack of cigarettes, $11 and a hat, the Pakistani clerk was shot last week. A city like a void expanding through towns of lemonade, the lot of polished, marked-down cars below the freeway, dark smog pushed up against the hills, a fat man to the table, galaxies of dust, the low sky stained with nicotine and rust. Los Angeles. A billboard explains that life is harsh. Your tequila shouldn't be. Okay. I'll read a few poems. They're called the Miniature Vedas. These are 3-line poems, a bit like American versions of the haiku. The compositional method, I'm often asked in interviews, how do you write your poems? This one has a very easy compositional method. People say things to me and I write them down. That's what these are. This is called On Failure. She says, I think I could be anorexic. I just don't have the discipline. Yeah. Greek ruins. Looking up through the streets of Athens, the boy cries, "Look, you can see the apocalypse." There's something so sad about one shoe left by the roadside, but underwear left at the beach, that's just funny. Oh, here's one that my colleague Bob Marks said to me about when I was translating Chinese erotic poems. This is called On Translating Chinese Sex Manuals. At last, Bob tells me, you have some research that will keep you up at night. He's a funny guy. In his dream, he sees an ancient Japanese knife, and on it written, "Death." Now that would be one hell of a knife to cook with. One good thing about divorce, she said, I get to stop being a character in your damn poems. Okay, so that's Tongue of War. And so I think I'll end up with poems from this book, Tongue of War, which just came out in November. It's based upon 15 years of research into World War II in the Pacific, from Pearl Harbor to Nagasaki, a little bit of the post-war period. Based on my readings of oral histories, my interviews with veterans and their families, and diaries, letters, and so on. They're all dramatic monologues. Most of them are villanelles or sonnets. They're all written in form of some kind or another. I do write free verse poems, but I seem to be reading only formal poems today. I guess that's it. I'll just start reading them. The one thing I'll say is that the people who are speaking will be both American and Japanese, Korean, different points of view. A bit like the project that Clint Eastwood had with Flags of Our Fathers and Layers from Iwo Jima, trying to tell the same story from multiple points of view, with the idea of not taking one moral stance, but rather allowing the reader to, or the listener to, find his or her own way through rather difficult moral issues, such as the dropping of the atom bomb in the civilian population, with the idea of spurring the end of a war and how one feels about that.